Hello everyone, I Professor Pardeshi AR. Today we are going to discuss the topic characteristics of the sewage of Environmental Engineering 2nd BE Civil. So before starting the characteristics of the sewage, we should know what is meant by sewage. Okay, the sewage is the wastewater from the community and which include the night soil or human excreta. The characteristics of the sewage, it is very important to design the treatment plant because the quality of the sewage which is directly proportional to the design of the treatment plant. We can find out the strength, characters, chemical composition, physical composition and biological composition by knowing the characteristics of the sewage. And from the characteristics of the sewage, we can adopt suitable method for the disposal of the sewage. Okay, so chemical in that first one is nothing but sewage which is consist of various residual public and industrial mixture of wastewater which contain the organic and inorganic materials. Therefore, the characteristics of the sewage are classified as physical characteristics, chemical characteristics and biological characteristics. Now we are going to discuss in a detail what are the different characteristics of the sewage. So in that first one is nothing but the physical characteristics of the sewage. Okay, physical characteristics is nothing but we have to find out the characteristics of the sewage before any chemical treatment. Okay, that's why it is called as a physical characteristics. So in that first one is nothing but the color. Okay, due to the suspended and the other matters found in a wastewater, color is aqueous to the sewage. And if sewage is a fresh, then it have the grey brown color, and if it is decomposed sewage is there, then it has the dark grey color. Okay, and this color we can measure on a platinum cobalt scale. This is the first characteristics of the sewage. Second physical characteristics is nothing but the odor, that means bad smell, and in this fresh sewage is of soapy or oily smell having the, and if it is a stale or it is stable sewage is there, it having the very offensive odor due to the hydrogen sulfate and methane. If the sewage is stable or well decomposed, then it generate the very bad smell, and this bad smell is generally due to the methane and hydrogen sulfate. The next characteristic, that is the physical characteristics of the sewage, is nothing but the turbidity. That means it is the very turbid than the water due to the suspense of high suspended and other impurities, which is always in a suspension motion, which gives the turbidity to the sewage. And it can be found out by using the Jackson turbidity unit meter and turbidity unit, and they are having the unit JTU or NTU. The next physical characteristics is nothing but the solids. The sewerage solid could also be classified into the dissolved solid, suspended solid, volatile solids and colloidal solid. The sewage generally consists of the solids, and the solids can be found out or can be determined by the filtration paper, evaporation, etc. The next physical characteristics is nothing but the temperature. It is very important physical characteristics of the sewage, in which it is generally sewage has the slightly higher temperature than the water, which increase the biological activity. That means when temperature rises, the biological activity rate also goes on up to the certain limit. Okay, the next point is nothing but the effect of the temperature on the sewage. Okay, let us discuss. First is nothing but the rate of bacterial activity. I already told you that the bacterial activity is goes on by the increasing the temperature. If temperature increases, the biological activity also increases. That is, the rate of decomposition goes on increasing, but up to the certain limit. If that exceed that limit, then the bacteria goes on die. Okay, and the rate of decomposition goes on decreasing. Next is nothing but the dissolved oxygen, that is DO, present in a water. If the temperature goes on increasing, the dissolved oxygen goes on decreasing. And next one is nothing but the viscosity. If the temperature of the sewage increases, the viscosity goes on decreasing. This is the effect of the temperature on the sewage. So next characteristics is nothing but the chemical characteristics, in which we have to titrate this sewage in a laboratory to find out its chemical characteristics. So solid normally contain of 99.9% of water and only 0.1% of total solid present in the sewage. Okay, and these chemical characteristics include the following test which I have to determine in a laboratories. So in that, first one is nothing but total solid. Okay, total solid, it is the solids which in the form of the suspended solid, volatile solid, colloidal solid, etc. Then next one is nothing but the pH, that is the hydrogen ion concentration in the sewage, and we can find out it by the pH meter or a pH paper in a laboratory. Next one is nothing but chloride content. Okay, it is generally contained in a waste from the residential area. It is in the form of chlorine. Next one is nothing but the nitrogen content. The nitrogen content can be determined in a laboratory, and that is in the form of the nitrates, nitrogen, nitrite, ammonia, etc. Next one is nothing but the presence of fat, grease and oil. This is the waste which is coming from the residential area or industrial area. Next one is nothing but the sulfide, sulfate and hydrogen sulfate gas. Next one is nothing but the dissolved oxygen, that is the DO. That means the amount of oxygen present in a sewage, that is the dissolved oxygen. Next chemical characteristics is nothing but the chemical oxygen demand, that is the COD. And last one is nothing but biochemical oxygen demand, that is the BOD. Later we discuss in a detail what is by DO, COD and BOD. So third characteristics that is very important, there is nothing but the biological characteristics. Okay, the sewage contain lots of bacteria. Okay, and the living organism found in a sewage are algae, that is the unicellular containing chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is nothing but the color pigment which is required for the photosynthesis, in which algae by using the photosynthesis process generate the new algae and release the oxygen into the sewage. Next is nothing but biological organism, that is fungi. Okay, it is not contain chlorophyll, and that's why it having the colorless. It does not have any color, that is the fungi, and it is unicellular. Next is nothing but the bacteria. If bacteria having the large size, then it is not pathogenic. Okay, that means it is not harmful for the human being or a living species. If the bacteria having the small size, that is considered as a pathogenic bacteria which is harmful for the human being or a living things, and it may be causes the diseases like cholera, typhoid, etc. And last one is nothing but the protozoa. It's again a unicellular. It is again unicellular, and it destroys the pathogen in the sewage. This is the biological characteristics of the sewage. So now we are going to discuss the biochemical oxygen demand, which is the characteristics of the chemical. Okay. First one is nothing but the BOD. So let us discuss what is by BOD. That is the amount of dissolved oxygen required to break down or decomposition of the organic material in the sample or a sewage by aerobic biological microorganisms at a certain temperature. That means the BOD is nothing but the amount of oxygen required for the bacteria to decompose or oxidize the organic matter which is present in a sewage under the aerobic condition and certain temperature. That is nothing but the biochemical oxygen demand. Next point is nothing but importance of the BOD. Okay, BOD is directly proportional to the concentration of the organic matter. That means BOD gives the value of how much quantity of the organic matter present in the sewage, and it can be find out within 5 days. That means the BOD test required 5 days to find out the concentration of organic matter completely decomposed, and it gives the concentration of biologically degraded organic matter. These are some importance of the BOD test or a BOD. Now we can determine these BOD by the methods of the dilution and direct method. Okay, next term is nothing but the chemical oxygen demand, that is COD. Okay, let us discuss what is meant by COD. That is the amount of oxygen required for the chemical decomposition of organic matter in a sewage by using strong oxidizing agent. That means COD is the oxygen required for the decomposition of the organic and inorganic matter which is present in a sewage, and this oxygen is required for the decomposition of the sewage by using the strong oxidizing agent like K2Cr2O7, that is the potassium dichromate. Okay, and the importance of COD is a thing, but it can be determined just within a 3 hours, and which shows the strength of the sewage. Okay, the COD, from the COD we can determine the strength of the sewage and the capacity we can design of the treatment plant by using the COD test. The next point is nothing but the relation between COD and BOD. Okay, as COD is a complete oxidation or a decomposition of organic and inorganic matter, that's why COD is always greater than BOD, while BOD is the just decomposition or oxidation of the organic matter under the aerobic condition. That's why COD is always greater than the BOD, and the ratio of COD to the BOD is always greater than 1. Okay, now we are going to discuss the difference between BOD and COD. Okay, I already told you that is the BOD, that is the amount of dissolved oxygen required to the breakdown or decomposition of organic material of the sample by the aerobic biological microorganism at a certain temperature. And the COD means what? The amount of organic matter contained in a water sample with the help of chemical oxidizing agent. Remember here we can use the chemical oxidizing agent, that is the potassium dichromate K2Cr2O7. Next point is nothing but BOD test required the 5 days for the analysis, while COD gives the result in just 3 hours. Okay, and the BOD test is not suitable to control the treatment process, while the COD is suitable to the control treatment process. The next point is nothing but in a BOD it necessary for the domestic sewage, and COD test is necessary for the industrial sewage. Next point is it gives, that means BOD gives the amount of biological active organic matter, and COD gives the amount of biological active as well as inactive organic matter. That's why COD is always greater than the BOD. Next point is nothing but in a BOD it not determine the strength of the sewage, but COD can determine the strength of the sewage from which we can design the sewage treatment plant. And BOD having the less value than the COD, and COD is always greater than the BOD. Okay, now we are going to discuss the aerobic process. Okay, this process is carried out or happen in the presence of the oxygen. That's why it is called as a aerobic process. The actual reaction of the aerobic process is nothing but the organic matter plus oxygen, that is in the presence of oxygen it gives the carbon dioxide and water. Okay, the byproduct is nothing but carbon dioxide and water, and it is performed by the aerobic bacteria. Aerobic bacteria means what? The bacteria which required the oxygen for the decomposition or oxidation of the organic matter, that is nothing but the aerobic bacteria. And this aerobic bacteria is required for the aerobic process, and oxygen is not sufficient in sewage, then that sewage is aerated. Okay, for this aerobic process oxygen is very essential, or it is very important in a sewage. If there is a not sufficient amount of oxygen in that sewage, then this sewage we have to aerated. The next process is nothing but the anaerobic process. Okay, in which the decomposition of the organic matter under take place absence of the oxygen. Okay, in this process there is the absence of oxygen, and which follows the following steps. That first one is nothing but the formation of the organic acid, in which first stage the bacteria convert the organic matter into the organic acid, and in second stage this organic acid is converted into the product like methane and carbon dioxide, which is the stable product. Okay, and this performed by the anaerobic bacteria. Anaerobic bacteria means what? The bacteria which does not require oxygen to the decomposition or oxidation of the organic matter. Okay, this is the anaerobic process. Okay, now we are going to discuss the difference between aerobic and anaerobic process. Okay, in first aerobic process there is a presence of oxygen, but anaerobic process there is a absence of the oxygen. Next point is nothing but in aerobic process the aerobic bacteria is required for this process, and in anaerobic bacteria is required. Next point is nothing but dissolved oxygen in use. Okay, aerobic process means what? We have to use the dissolved oxygen, and in anaerobic process there is a chemical bond oxygen that is used. Okay, that is from the PO4 or from the H2S the oxygen is used. That is a chemical bonded oxygen is used in an anaerobic process. Next point in aerobic process, that means it does not having the final product or it does not produce the stable product, but in anaerobic process there is a stabilized product is generated. In aerobic process methane is not generated, but in an anaerobic process methane gas is generated and it can be utilized as a fuel. The aerobic process having the less cost, while the anaerobic process is a costly process. The aerobic process gives the byproduct like carbon dioxide, H2S, NO3, SO4, while the anaerobic process gives the methane, hydrogen sulfate, carbon dioxide are the end product. Next point is nothing but in an aerobic process it always releases carbon dioxide, while in anaerobic process may or may not be released carbon dioxide as a byproduct. And last point is in an aerobic process is nothing but it generates water, and anaerobic process it does not generate the water. This is the main difference between aerobic process and anaerobic process. Thank you. Next part will continue in a next lecture.